Today we're talking about the aftermath of Rook
in Harbinger Renegade number 7.
You are now watching WhoDooTV.
Welcome back to WhoDooTV. I'm Hoosier.
And I'm Jared.
Today we are talking Harbinger Renegade number 7.
Yeah, it's the book by Rafer Roberts with art by Darick Robertson and colors by Diego Rodriguez.
We're going to review this book in some details today, so there may be some spoilers. So pause it, come back, and we'll be here when you're done.
So to catch you guys all up on this run of Harbinger Renegade, number 5 ended with a huge massacre in Rook, the city that Gen Zero has kind of taken over for themselves. The hardcore were sent in by Omen, and they pretty much massacred all of Gen Zero. Lots of Gen Zero characters were lost, lots of hardcore members were lost. It was big, and so this book, here 7, finally gets back to what happened. And one of the only Gen Zero characters that lived and got away was Animalia, and the end of number 5 had her flying away as one of her birds.
And then we jump to issue number 6, where it goes back in time to go over the first psiot, the Alpha, the Stormbringer. And it goes into a totally different base, totally different element, and we get to see the first psiots. It was a good book, it was a good story, but it kind of interrupted some momentum, because now in 7, it starts off with Animalia flying away.
Yeah, and so she's flying away, she's being chased down by some an Omen helicopter. She goes down into the woods, transforms a couple times, escapes them eventually, and makes her way down. And she finds a place to hide, and that's where Peter's looking for her. He's kind of scanning everyone's mind, trying to listen for something, and he starts to hear her voice, and he's able to go and find her in the basement of a library.
Down in the library, Pete and Animalia keep having this back and forth conversation where Animalia keeps blaming Pete for what happened for him not being there. And Pete's very remorseful in this. He's pretty sad the Gen Zero guys were killed. And Animalia just really wants to have things done. She wants it done her way. And so Pete brings this letter, and they end up saying that he's found Helix information. And so Animalia says, let's go. We then go back in, and we see Jay and Axe, both in a computer room trying to work out some different computer stuff, and they're trying to build a force field to hide them from Harada in this Nebraska-ish country homestead with cornfields out front, trying to kind of go in hiding.
Yeah, while they're downstairs working on the computer stuff, upstairs, Torque is getting a little restless. He wants to go out and fight. He wants to destroy everybody. He's wondering why are they sitting on their butts for this long, and he ends up punching a hole through the wall, Torque being Torque. And you get a moment in this where Torque talks about why he's so angry about this, and he says he liked those kids. They were good people, and he enjoyed them. And it's kind of a moment to get deeper with Torque, which is moments that you don't get that often.
That's part I'm going to talk about that right now. Is when Torque's saying like they sat there for a while, made it seem like they were sitting there for a long time. However, we just saw Animalia flying away and Pete just connecting with her. So has it just happened, or has this been a while? So the time frame threw me off there.
That's a good point. I mean, either it has been a while and the timing's a little weird, or Torque is just extremely impatient.
Right. He probably wants to handle it right then. So yeah, I mean, there's probably an answer to that, and it's probably the later. Torque is just Torque. Then we go back into Pete and Animalia, and they're talking to Telek's mother, basically letting her know that she got abducted by PRS, and she's letting her know that she was a psiot and she was cared for, and she was one of Animalia's best friends. And so they basically tell the mother, and then we go back to the farmstead.
Yeah, we jump back to the farmstead where Chris and Tamara have a moment. They're kind of talking about how they're handling all this together and how life is just crazy and it's so stressful. And Tamara kind of sits Chris down and says, we can't just let our lives go just down the crapper because the whole world seems to be going crazy. And it's almost like she gives kind of a soft marriage proposal to her. That's the way I interpreted it anyways, and I'm curious how everybody else thinks. Do you think that was a proposal from Tamara to Chris? Let us know in the comments, because I'm curious what y'all think.
I think she's just smitten over her girl.
Yeah.
My thoughts.
Yeah.
And then from there, the whole group is together with Carolyn. who basically told us a word, and that was about it. They're there, and they're all discussing their plan on what they're going to do next.
Yeah, it's sounds like they're going to start going out and looking for psiots again. It's kind of how Pete went about his business in Harbinger at the very beginning, looking for psiots and looking for people to protect at their homestead and to activate if they want to be activated, and then to kind of train them to be somewhat of an army to defend themselves.
This book definitely had a lot of story build-up. There was some really good parts about it. Getting Animalia connected back with the Renegades, which was very expected. Did expect that. And Pete, you definitely tell that he did have a soft spot for Animalia in the Harbinger run, the original run. And so it was kind of knowing that that was going to happen again. And then building the story up of where they're going to go next, what they're going to do next. It definitely did some good connections there to get it built up. There were some things that I had quite a bit of questions on, though.
Yeah, I guess I kind of struggled a little bit with almost the militant fervor that Chris had at the end of this book. And claiming that they're going to create an army to fight. It almost, to me, it's definitely sounded like something PRS would say, something that Harada would say. And I'm almost worried that the characters are moving in a direction and becoming what they wanted to fight against. So for me, that was a little concerning.
As far as Valiant goes, that's continued to be one of the common stories, is that moral ambiguity, right? Where good people do bad things, bad people can do good things. Where Harada is a guy who wants to do well, but in his own vision. Pete is a guy who's bad, who wants to do right. So there always has been this moral ambiguity, especially in the Harbinger stories. It's kind of like a big root clog of this whole story that's been going on from the beginning. And it is interesting, but I do think if somebody's willing to threaten you and kill you, you're going to build up your army to get ready for it, especially when the people that are coming after you are the law.
And I can definitely understand that. I can understand their willingness to want to fortify where they're at. And if it is a more of a sanctuary for psiots, then I can definitely understand, you want some guards, you want some protection, you want to bring people somewhere and they can feel safe with having, I guess, an army to defend them.
Right. And some of the beautiful things to think about this book were the connections and the continuity with Secret Weapons. So Secret Weapons had the anti-psiot vehicles, right? So your law are coming at you with tanks, right? And so you're not going to just go run and hide your whole life. You're going to build something because they're coming after you. The same way they came out of Avi in Secret Weapons. Watch that review of Secret Weapons number 3. But then that's also the question. That same time, they had Rook just happen, and they were talking about it in Secret Weapons, and Livewire talks to Axe, and Axe has this long hair, and he's in Santa Monica. We see him in this book. He has short, spiky hair, and he's in Nebraska or something. He's definitely not in Santa Monica. So that was just some weird continuity things I think editing may have missed, or I messed up on the timeline, but it sounded like both of them that Rook just happened because they mention it in both of those. So, but I thought that was beautiful of that connection with from Livewire Secret Weapons over to Harbinger Renegade. That was a great connection.
So this book opens with Animalia flying away, kind of being chased down by a helicopter, and it kind of reminded me a lot of what you see in Harbinger Volume 5 in the Perfect Day series. It catches up to Animalia and what happened after Harbinger Wars, the first Harbinger Wars, and she flew away as the pterodactyl, and she was pretty much shot down and was captured and brought into Harada's conglomerate, and plugged into a psiot, and she was living in this her own perfect day. And this kind of was reminiscent of that for me a little bit. She was kind of that one person that kind of got away, except this time she continued to get away, which was good, but it just definitely seemed very similar.
Right. There's a lot of similarities in it. It's almost on a bigger scale though, but a lot of similarities. I can see that. So I definitely know that. And yeah, I would say one of my big questions was the timeline a little bit with, like I said, I mentioned the torque and then how it just it happened. And then again, having that alpha issue in the middle of that. I feel like it lost a little momentum.
I agree.
I do feel like the characters could have had a little bit more voice. I felt like I had a decent story connected with this book. but I didn't feel like we were getting a lot of the character's voice. I feel like we could have got a little bit more individualized character's voice. It kind of got lost in the shuffle of things this book.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It almost seemed like Rafer had a lot he wanted to say in this one, and just kind of gave it to whichever characters, I guess, could deliver that at this moment. Yeah, there were a couple lines in there where it was almost like, would this character even deliver this line? Is this a bit too much of, a voice that isn't theirs? We're missing something a little bit.
Part of it is Anna Amelia is talking like this grown adult, and yet she's still portraying these cartoon characters. So I feel like if there's the grown adult talk, that we should be able to see a little bit more mature characters. She's flying away as a cartoon bird. If she would have flown away as a real bird, they wouldn't have noticed her.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it's definitely a juxtaposition between, the voice, the mature voice that she's been giving in this book, and to really how still young and playful, I guess, or immature. Yeah, that's the word that she really is. So I don't know if that was intentional or if, again, it was just she was the person just to deliver the lines in that one.
And we also had a thrown in of Carolyn in there that was kind of out of place. She got thrown in with one little panel, didn't say another word, and we had to actually go back and look and see who the heck was that.
Yeah, because I totally forgot about that character. She seemed to be someone in the first volume of Harbinger Renegade. It didn't really show where she ended up. I mean, They got her away from Solomon, but it wasn't really a closure on that story. And she just pops up. Especially it was different because she had a different haircut in this as well. It was
she got the Chris cut.
Exactly. It's hard to recognize that. And I would also mention that there was a couple times in this where Tamara and Animalia got mixed up in my mind. Especially the far away, the framing of this. Their hair is so similar. I think just the art and the inking of this, it all just looked very, very similar. It was hard to keep track, I would say.
Right. But I also want to say I like the throwback of the Harbinger #1 with the voice bubbles of Pete trying to hear everybody to find Animalia. That was a cool little scene. It definitely reminded me back of Harbinger #1.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that would say something about his character as well, how far he's come. He was overwhelmed by that in Harbinger #1. But in this book, he used it. It was a tool for him.
Right. Which that was really cool there.
That's a really cool thing for his character. All right, what would you score this one?
I think I'm going to be giving this book a 3.25. Again, there was good story. I felt like there should have been a little bit more character voice in it. The art wasn't great this issue. Some of the inkings just really didn't do it for me. But overall, the story is good. I like the build-up, and I'm looking forward to seeing what #8 has for us. And then the 0 issue that's being solicited for November, and it looks like they're going to give us some more Stormbringer, get us a little bit more Solomon again.
I could agree on some of those. I'm going to give this one a 3 as well. The story, there was just a lot in here, and I guess it didn't necessarily go anywhere yet, other than a declaration of building an army, which I had already expressed my concerns with earlier in this episode. The artwork kind of gets me. I think Darick Robertson can have some really great panels, but a lot of his work, I think overall, maybe isn't my favorite work. So I think overall, just this book, it was, especially with the slowing of the momentum of having #6 in between 5 and this one, the story just kind of tried to pick up back emotionally where it ended on #5. I think overall, yeah, I just have to give this one a 3.
Tell us what you guys thought of this book. Put your score down below. What out of 5 do you guys give this book?
Hey, if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button below.
There's also that subscribe button down there too. Make sure you punch that. We'd appreciate it. Follow us at Twitter at WhoDooTV, also on Facebook.
Yeah, and we'd like to thank our friends over at OutrightGeekery.com. Be sure to check them out. They got all sorts of nerdy stuff on there.
Links down in the description. Thank you for watching WhoDooTV. We appreciate you guys.